those interstate viewers all.
That's exactly right. This is how we roll down these parts.
All right, bear with me. I'm just getting the audio recording as well, so we can put that up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there you go.
What do you got there?
Got one viewer.
Saying it's working?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Sitting in this building, spending taxpayers' dollars very efficiently.
Oh, he's at work already? I'm impressed. It's only 8:20.
Yeah, but he can clock off at 3 if he comes in. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Nameless person.
Okay. All right, we got some audio happening here. The audio you saw before. All right, let me just hit record on that. On there. All right. How's everybody feeling? Beach,
We are good to go.
We are good. Yes, I had a good night's sleep last night, which was very good.
I'm very
good
happy to hear that.
Yep.
Okay, we are live now.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Okay.
All right.
All yours, Beach.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Becher Townshend, and welcome to this emergency break glass edition of FontCast, Tasmania's top-rating politics podcast. As we record live to air this morning, Wednesday, 4th of June, both the Greens and Liberal Party rooms are meeting to discuss their response to Labor's no-confidence motion in Premier Jeremy Rockliff, which was tabled yesterday. Already we know that the motion has the support of 3 independents, Christy Johnston, Andrew Jenner and critically Craig Garland. If the Greens support the motion, it will pass, and Premier Jeremy Rockliff's tenure will be over, and potentially also that of the Liberal government. Joining me to discuss what it all means and where it could go from here is my business partner and veteran, Liberal political strategist, Brad Stansfield.
Hello, Beach. Hello, Sam.
Hello, Brad. How are you?
Well, it's the 4th day of winter, the season of discontent. Winter is coming. All these sort of unfortunate puns just roll off the tongue, don't they?
It's coming early. Right. Well, the first question, the only question, is this the end of the road for Jeremy Rockliff?
It's looking very, very shaky for the Premier Beach. Very, very shaky. As you said, the 3 swing independents are locked and loaded.
Yep.
The Greens, I understand, they're meeting this morning, as you said, but they will also support the motion. It'd be pretty extraordinary if they didn't,
I've
to
got
be
to say,
honest.
I'd be shocked. Yep.
Last night and this morning, frantic calls were being made and still are being made, I think, by the Premier's office.
Yep.
To try and encourage people, stakeholders, to publicly and privately pressure Mr Winter to back down from his motion yesterday.
Yep.
I can also reveal that the Liberal PLP met last night and confirmed the Premier's position, and that is that he will seek to stare Mr Winter down.
Oh, okay.
I've got to say I'm not sure that's going to be a successful strategy.
No.
Beach, some of our viewers might recall, and listeners, I mean, some of the slightly older ones perhaps. I'm young enough to remember back in the early 90s, there was a great little computer game came out.
Yeah.
I think I was playing it on might have been the Commodore 64.
I'm going to say, was it an Amstrad, Brad?
Maybe.
We had a thing called a TRS-80, just so you know. That's getting old school.
Anyway, this computer game's called The Lemmings.
Ah.
So these cute little creatures, a bit like extreme sheep.
Yep.
They followed each other unwaveringly. And the purpose of the game, and I think you can probably still get it in retro or whatever, was to guide your flock of lemmings to safety by taking the leader around all the obstacles, and then the lemmings would follow and you would successfully achieve the aim of the game.
Yep.
The problem with the lemmings was that they did unwaveringly follow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you made the mistake, or sometimes people do it on purpose because it'd be a bit funny, of walking your lead lemming off a cliff, the rest of the lemmings would unwaveringly follow off that cliff.
Okay.
And I've got to say, that's where, in my view, the vast majority of the Liberal Party room has been on the stadium for the last 3 years.
Yep.
and that's where I think they are at the moment.
Yeah.
Literally sleepwalking, lemming walking into opposition.
Off a cliff.
Yep.
Off a cliff.
Yep. Well,
So-
it was a good game back in the day. I do recall it fondly for what it's worth.
So what happens if a vote of no confidence is it gets up?
Well, we'll come to that, I think, Sam. But
Okay,
so it's a
sorry.
good point.
All right.
So that's where things are at now.
Yep.
Obviously, there's still a few moving parts in play, and we'll see where things move this morning. The Greens could decide not to back the motion. What do you reckon the odds of that be?
Yeah. Well, I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't be.
Unlikely. Sam's looking at the thumbs
yeah,
down.
I think
Okay.
Sam say no.
The Greens will jump on
Labor, Mr. Winter could back down. What do you think of the chances of that?
Well, I have it on good authority
Really?
that he ain't backing down at this
Right.
point.
it. He put out a cryptic tweet yesterday saying there's time for change, or Tasmanians want change, or something like that.
Yeah, so
He's
there
not
you go.
backing down. He's
No.
going to get a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
A lot
he's
of people from the
definitely-
AFL,
Well,
saying
yeah, there it
AFL
is.
TV commentary's gone berserk over it.
Yeah,
He's not backing down?
No, he's not backing down.
Right.
That's what I'm told. Yep.
One of the independents could change their mind.
Well, I mean, there is a bit of speculation that could occur. I mean, Kim Booth, for those studiers of Tasmanian political history, remember many years ago that Kim threatened to bring Paul Lennon down, and of course then got to the House and had a change of heart.
Could happen.
Yep.
Unlikely.
Yep.
The Premier could dump the stadium.
Well, come on.
Sorry, it's too early for jokes, isn't it? And there could also, perhaps more seriously, there could be a change of leader in the Liberal Party room this morning. A change of leader precipitating a change of policy on the stadium in particular. I don't think that's likely at this stage, but I wouldn't completely rule it out.
Okay. All right.
So all that, well, I think my summary is at this stage where we are is
Lemmings.
Lemmings.
Right. Okay. Well, let's take it back a step for our listeners, because I think it's fair to say this came on pretty, inverted commas, suddenly. So yesterday, at the conclusion of his budget in reply speech, the opposition leader tabled a no confidence motion and said he would move it only when enough independents and Greens indicated their support for it to pass. The no confidence motion is normally in the Premier, we'll come back to that later, over the budget, which was indeed a true shocker, top to bottom shocker.
How bad was it?
Oh, yes. I've never seen worse. There you go.
Goodness.
Yeah. But this motion is about that. This motion is about that. It's really about capitalising on the deep unrest over the proposed Macquarie Point AFL Stadium. It's the main reason that Mr Garland in particular has cited for intending to support this no confidence motion.
Yeah, he said a few things, but that was the main thing.
Okay, so the rising tide. Now, Brad, at the start of the year, you predicted no election this year.
I did.
As predicted by... Yes, I'm enjoying this moment. What's changed?
Well, firstly, I'm still not sure there will be an election, first point.
Okay.
What I did say, and I think I'd happy to go back and check the Hansard, so to speak,
Yeah.
was that there won't be an election this year because Labor is not in a position where they could win it. And if that situation changes, then we will see them move to bring the government down. And so what has happened over recent weeks, so in fact our last pod, we had Mary in from EMRS, our good friends at EMRS, to talk about the latest state polling figures, which showed the Liberal vote collapsing 29%, lowest in 20 years.
2006.
2006. The Labor vote improving not a lot, but enough to be in an election-winning lead, I would suggest.
Yep.
That poll also showed the stadium had jumped massively in salience as an issue.
From 3 to 13%, if memory serves me correct.
2 to 13%.
Oh,
I think.
2?
Yes.
Okay.
And the poll also showed that the main decline in the Liberal vote had been in the north.
Yes, and north and northwest.
North and northwest,
Absolutely.
which I think EMRS and Mary quite sensibly put one and one together and got two to suggest that possibly the main reason for the Liberals' collapse in vote was the deeply unpopular stadium.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, okay. All right.
Strange, a few poll denialists running around. Perhaps they're not. They disappeared yesterday, suggesting that no, it was all good. The other thing that happened, of course, was last weekend. is this still last weekend? Yes, the weekend before last. There was weekend before last, 2 weekends ago. There was an election, or 3 elections in the Legislative Council.
Yep.
And
last weekend, yes.
The Liberal candidates in both Montgomery and Nelson got trounced. I don't think you could describe it as any other way.
Nope.
Completely trounced, almost pantsed.
Yep.
And
strong candidates.
were strong candidates.
Yep.
Well, certainly the Nelson candidate was.
Yep.
And on the Eastern Shore, Labor, where the Liberals didn't contest,
Yep.
the Liberal vote increased significantly,
with
a 5% increase.
With a strong former member running.
With a strong result. Now,
Yep.
on top of that, of course, there was the federal election result.
Well, I was going to say the recent Liberal wipeout. I think fair to say that perhaps Labor started to think, perhaps we're back in the game.
Yeah. So the groundwork was laid, and it was always going to be a question of what would happen this week with the tabling of Guy Barnett's budget, and as to exactly how bad it would be. And unfortunately, the budget, as you mentioned, that Guy brought down was an absolute shocker, absolutely Barry Crocker, appalling, record deficits, debt spiking to nearly $11 billion. That's 11 times 1 billion. And then on top of that, the government announced that they would fast-track the stadium.
Yeah.
So we've got a shit budget.
Completely.
We're going to fast-track the stadium that no one wants with legislation that no one wants. And then, on top of that, the government announced yesterday, and just announce it, it's your phone ringing, Beach, they literally introduced that legislation into the Parliament, despite the fact consultation is still open.
Okay. So I can consult, but the bill's already in Parliament, so why would I waste my time?
If I didn't know better, I would say that the government had a complete political death wish over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I think that'd be a fair observation to make, and I think a fair few political observers have made that observation to me. Are they deliberately trying to do this speech? Do they want to fail? Do they not listen to good advice? But yeah, look, in terms of the budget,
Yeah, I know you. This was the original script for the show, the budget.
Was, and of course it'll be lost in all the other things that are going on today. But I have not seen a worse budget in Tasmanian history. I was gobsmacked at the response, or more to the point, the lack of response. And I suppose I'm not really sure why there wasn't any further commentary on it. Last year we saw Michael Ferguson bring down a budget which was pretty uninspiring, but next to this one actually looked quite good. And Ferguson effectively, I think you make the point that, effectively lost his job over the spirit issue and then that budget.
Yes.
Whereas this one,
the budget was the final straw, I think,
because
he'd already gone as Minister for Infrastructure at that point.
Yeah, but because it's Guy, I don't know, we can get away with $750 million extra for health and nobody really thinks about it.
A billion.
$700
was $1 billion.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, 2,500 jobs that we've already started getting rid of, but we're increasing the numbers, but we will get rid of them at some point. And a surplus, well, it's just beyond the forward estimates there. It's just, it's just somewhere over that horizon.
I think
Brad.
the sense was, and I think the Leader of the Opposition articulated it pretty well in his speech yesterday, actually. There were some good bits in it, where he made the point that, the budget was so bad, it would be almost unconscionable, the right word? Yes, for an opposition that holds a no-confidence motion in the palm of their hand not to do something, not to take action, to move.
I must admit,
correct.
To let government get away with that pile of shite was probably a fair call in that context.
Yeah, you can't say that. Yeah, to stand by and do nothing.
No, is not good enough. No. And I must admit, if we'd had more time to explore the budget, I would have concluded that Tasmania deserves better than this in terms of the budget, and that's my view. We deserve a lot better than what we've got, and we've now got lifetime of debt that we've got to pay. It reduces our opportunities from a decision-making point of view. It reduces our opportunity to stimulate and grow the economy into the future, and really restricts us as a state. So anyhow, all right. Well, There you go.
So it was over the stadium. Is that what it essentially?
Well,
if they hadn't have backed the stadium to the very death, which they have.
So what's been happening, I think, is there's an increasing realisation that the stadium has whiskers on it. The polling is showing that people across the north and the northwest are finally sort of going, well, why are you spending? And I got this feedback at the TCCI business lunch in Launceston.
Yep.
Why are you spending all this money in Hobart? What about us? What about, a convention centre, which I think Labor announced for Launceston? What are you doing in the north and the northwest coast? In other words, it's all about Hobart. And people are starting to realise, we'd love a footy team. No disputing with that. But they're also starting to realise, it's all about Hobart and we need a bit more than that. So there's a rising discontent, and I think finally people in the north and the northwest coast are making the connection that, hey, hold on, this isn't actually very equitable for us, and so there is that increasing mood, and then the state debt is rising to about 10 points.
So the budget was, I think, in a sense, was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Right.
And the motion of no confidence is nominally in the government over the budget and a few other matters. Doesn't mention the stadium, but the stadium is what is it all about.
It's the realisation of all these things, of the rubber hitting the road. We've actually got to produce a set of books that actually says, well, that's great. We've got all these fantasies. How are we going to do it? So that's what happened there.
Yeah, understood.
Anyhow, I think, well, there it is. I think the $1 million question, Brad, at this point.
The $11 billion question.
Yep, at 8:40 in the morning on Wednesday, the 3rd of June, I believe it is. Where to from here?
Yes, very good question. Parliament's set to resume at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So, the Premier's got a number of options, the current Premier, Mr. Rockcliffe. The first thing, and that's, this is, as I say, as I understand, I know is his current position, and is, at least before the PLP meeting this morning, was the position of the PLP, which is to try and stare Mr. Winter down, to call his bluff, to essentially say, mate, you want an election, you can have an election. Bring it on, make my day. That's his position. Now, the problem with this is a few things. Firstly, I'm not sure, and there's contested. Well, firstly, he's not going to back down.
Yep.
Not going to back down. You've had that confirmed this morning. I've had that confirmed this morning from other sources. And why would he? The bloke would have to resign himself if he backed down at this point.
That's exactly right.
He's not going anywhere.
Stakes are too high.
But the second problem with calling this bluff is I'm not sure that it will necessarily result in election, as I intimated at the start. The no confidence motion, should it be successful, will require the Premier, to resign. And the Governor will then have options, or I think the Lieutenant Governor. I think the Governor's away.
Yeah.
Not sure. Is the Lieutenant Governor the new bloke from WA?
Well.
Not sure. Anyway, you understand local politics.
I wonder how he'll understand the
bit tricky here
Constitution.
For yeah. Anyway, sure he's a lawyer.
Yeah. That's true.
That person may seek to appoint another Premier before calling an election. In fact, there's some suggestion that they would almost be obliged to. Now, I've heard conflicting advice on that just on the radio this morning from various experts. So it could well be, for example, that if no Liberal alternative can be found to run a stable government, we'll come back to that, that perhaps Mr. Winter might be invited to form a government on the floor of the Parliament with the Greens, which would be quite extraordinary. Now, not sure whether he'd be up for that, and he might pretend to try and then not so he could have an election, but that...
He would be so up for it.
Maybe he would.
I feel... come on.
That's exactly right.
Never a dull day in Tasmanian politics, that's for sure.
And you then he would have incumbency. Is that not usually an advantage?
Correct.
If
that didn't happen and we do end up at the point where there is an election, just to be brutally frank, the Liberals would be annihilated. All over, Red Rover, see you in 15 years. So... I cannot see in any way,
don't mince your words
shape
there, Brad.
or form. Call it as I see it, as you know. I cannot see how in any way that is a sustainable course of action. But that is the Premier's current position, to be clear.
I've just had I got a note in. Yes, the WA bloke is running Government House at the moment.
Right.
You'll be happy to
Okay,
know.
that's good to know. Does he understand Tasmanian constitutional law?
Well, I think he's probably pulled out a textbook which would have been written by the governor's wife,
There you
governor's
go.
husband, actually, on the topic of the Tasmanian Legal Studies Handbook. I think it was.
All right. The second thing the Premier could do,
Yep.
the second option, is to do everything possible. Oh, this would have been the first option for me, to be clear.
Yep.
To stave off the motion. So,
And what would that have involved?
well, if hypothetically, Mr. Garland had said, and in fact he did say, as I heard on the radio,
Yep.
that one of the major reasons for him not supporting you is the stadium, then perhaps you might think about punting that, drop kicking it perhaps as far as possible in order to secure support to stay in government.
So just to tease that out a bit, because that's something you've been saying, and you're on the record as saying it. I think, well,
about 3 years ago.
3 years ago, yes, and again in the last FontCast, and I think earlier this week with an opinion piece, quite a well considered opinion piece in the Tasmanian Country. That's a straight, pragmatic political move in order to ensure that you can continue in government, isn't
Yes.
it? It's
So that would be the most obvious course of action. Now there's a few whiskers on that potentially.
Yes.
You might gain Craig Garland and you might lose David O'Byrne.
Yep.
So you're still a vote short, but there is also a few other swing votes in the middle.
You live to fight another
Christy
day.
Johnson, Andrew Jenner, possibly even the Greens might back you in. Sam.
Yep.
Question from Ben Armitage. I'm assuming this is Ben Armitage of Bawdy pantomime fame.
Could well be.
Maybe not. Do you think Labor take a pro-stadium position to a hypothetical election?
Pocket that. We will come to that. We will
We'll
come
get
to
to it,
that.
Ben, 'cause
All right.
Ben's right onto it.
So that's the most obvious. That's the most obvious thing for the Premier to do. But as I say, at the moment, that ain't happening.
Nope.
So option 3.
Premier ain't for changing.
He's not for turning. The Premier, the Iron Premier, ain't not for
the
turning.
lady ain't for changing. Yep.
He's not a lady. Third, either before.
You never know.
So before or after, before 10 a.m, before the motion presumably is brought on this morning, or after the passage of the motion, Mr. Rockcliffe could resign as leader of the Liberal Party.
Yep.
He could wait for the Liberal Party to elect a new leader. Mm-hmm. He's still Premier at this point.
Yep.
He could then go to the Governor and say, guess what, Your Lordship from Perth, I've lost my gig.
Yep.
Parliament don't want me, so I'm handing in my commission, but before I do, I recommend you talk to my successor at the Liberal Party and see whether or not they can command the numbers on the floor.
Okay. Yep.
Now, that's we'll come back to that. I think that's probably a quite live option at this point. And the final option, and alluded to at the start, is the PLP might decide to take matters out of the Premier's hands and tell him to go and grow potatoes and get someone else in before this morning. But again, I think that's unlikely at the moment.
Okay, but again, it's that pragmatic view of they might do that to stay in power, but I think your Lemmings speech at the start sort of suggests that that's not the case.
Yeah, I think there's a few in there that perhaps some of the more experienced politicians who have been around a long time, ex-senator, for example, who probably have a slightly more sophisticated view of things.
Yep.
But unfortunately, a lot of the people in that party room are very one-eyed.
And haven't seen this and haven't had to, and been very easily got elected.
Yeah, so...
Right, so what's your view, Brad?
So my view, and again, at the level of my hits in terms of advice being followed over the last little while is pretty much just none out of 1,000. But anyway...
So it's interesting, though, while your advice hasn't been taken, your predictions perhaps have come true, perhaps because your advice hasn't been taken. But anyhow, let's go on.
At the end of the day, and I think I did say this on the last pod, the survival of the government has to be the most important aim. Has to be. That's the most important thing. It's the ultimate thing. You crawl over broken glass to get into government. You crawl backwards over it to stay in government. That's the deal. Yep. Winter's not going to be. He's not bluffed. He'll proceed. Yep. Let's assume the Greens are also with them.
Yes.
The motion is happening.
Yep.
So the Premier needs to do everything he can to prevent that motion. Yep. If he's not either unwilling or cannot do that and the motion passes, then, as I said, my view is the Premier needs to hand over to somebody else in the party room who can seek to command a majority on the floor of the parliament, and that might mean that person will mean that person has to make some policy decisions.
Wow. Okay, so if the Premier were to resign or be replaced, who'd be the likely Liberal successor?
Oh, we've got a comment
Yes.
suggesting it. And it cometh the moment, cometh the Eric.
Oh, well.
Virtual perusing.
Well,
I'm not sure who that is.
yeah, okay, well, would that person have the numbers on the floor for the Liberals to stay in government anyhow, which is it's one thing to become leader of the Liberal Party and perhaps as...
Yeah, that's right. The governor won't appoint them Premier unless they can demonstrate they have
the numbers.
at
Yep.
least for a period of time.
Yep.
So, as I see it, there are 4 potential names.
Yep.
We'll go through them in order. Mr. Perusing suggested. Eric Abetz
Yes.
certainly thinks he can do the job.
Yep.
I don't think that he would be the choice of the party room.
Okay.
That would be my view. And Eric's problem is he's the current salesman for the stadium.
Oh, he is too.
So,
yeah.
presuming the stadium would need to be abandoned in order for them to stay in government,
Yep.
it would require him to do some mathematics, some gymnastics that are perhaps a little bit tricky for someone of his political vintage,
Yes.
shall we say.
Okay, yes.
But no doubt he will be in the
triple
mix wanting
backflip with
the job.
bike. Yep.
Correct.
Yep.
Second option, Guy Barnett.
Yeah,
But
well-
I think Guy ruled himself out last Friday with the worst budget in the history of the world.
Well, last Thursday, actually, and then
Thursday,
confirmed it on Friday.
And the motion of no confidence
yep.
is nominally in the budget. So
Yes.
I find it hard how he could
Bring down a budget
credibly.
and then take the leadership, even though he's bring down the most crap
That's
budget
right.
in
The third name
ever.
being mentioned in dispatches, Felix Ellis.
Okay.
Okay.
A lot of potential.
Yeah.
I think he's learned a fair bit from his foray into the fire tax, his ill-fated foray joust with Font a few years ago over
Yes.
that, and he's learnt to be a little bit more considered in the way he proceeds, but I'm not sure that he's quite ready for the job.
He's hungry and hardworking,
Yes.
but yes, I think that's fair. So that just leaves one person. I'm almost
One person, that's
thinking
right.
we might need a drum roll for this one, but anyhow,
Big, tall
Brad.
drink of water.
Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Ferguson is, if the Premier were to no longer be leader of the Liberal Party, he is the logical successor in the circumstances, in my view. A few points
Yep.
from the north. Tick.
Yep.
He's experienced and has been around a long time.
Yep.
Tick. He hasn't actually been in the cabinet for the last 12 months. So in a sense, he's a clean skin when it comes to decisions that the cabinet has taken over the last 12 months about budgets and the ship.
Okay.
Not
Yep.
the ship, sorry, the
But why?
stadium.
Yeah.
Why has he not been in the?
Well, that's
'cause
right.
He's got hair on him.
And he's got hair on him.
Yep.
He's got a lot of hair. He's got a beard
He's got
of
the
magnificent
beard.
proportions.
Yeah. Well, my tip is
He looks
if
great.
he loses, if he loses the beard, then we'll know it's on. But
He,
that's true.
He has some barnacles, as you suggested,
Yep.
Sam. I mean, clearly he lost his job over the ferry fiasco, and that is going to be an issue he's going to have to navigate his way through, so to speak. But I've got to say, the options aren't. You've got to choose the best of the options. You can't choose the options you want.
Yep.
And my view would be that he would be the strongest of those options.
All right. Okay. So he's the comeback kid,
Yes,
right?
could be.
There he is. Welcome back. All is forgiven, Michael Ferguson. But it's one thing to win party support. You have a better understanding of the party room than I do, Brad. But that's all well and good. That's great. Michael rolls in to Parliament, but what's he do to actually get support on the floor of the House? Because that's going to be a lot harder. And they still face the issue of Dean's, sitting there arguably with the numbers to.
Yeah,
bring the
so
government
it would seem clear that whoever the new leader, if there is a new leader of the Liberal Party is, they would need to dump the stadium.
Yep.
In order to try and secure the votes of Mr. Garland and perhaps a few others, they would need to dump privatisation agenda completely, again, in order to try and bring those people on board.
Yep.
They might need to do a few other things that I don't know about that certain members might be asking for.
Yep.
But they would need to basically clear the decks of those major issues and in return seek confidence and supply, because the budget hasn't passed yet, for a period of time at least. And given I don't think anyone really wants an election in the middle of winter, we may not even get one, to be fair, I think that person, if they took the right actions, would have a reasonable chance of keeping the Liberals in government for at least the next little while.
Okay, so, and given that, this budget would have to go through, correct?
Yes.
So he'd have to sort of suck it up on the budget and say, oh, well,
there it is.
There it is.
Yep.
We'll get it through. And so
you could take $1 billion out of it.
Yeah,
the stadium.
I suppose you could. Yeah, okay. All right. So
that leads to this other, also from virtual perusing.
Yep.
What have the odds shifted to Stadium 2.0?
Yes.
And Lennon/Winter coming away with a coup that saves our balance.
That's right,
sheet.
and that was the question earlier from your friend at the Porty Panto, I think, wasn't it?
Yes.
So,
that's
Beach.
correct. Yes, all right. So, well, yes. I mean, it probably does mean Stadium 1.0 is dead, doesn't it?
Yes. A lot of talk about what this means for the stadium and for the team.
Yep.
A lot of hyperventilating from the football journalists of the world who care only about a little, oblong. That's not even oblong, is it?
No, it's oval. Well,
oval-shaped ball.
Yeah.
In both this side of the Bass Strait and the others, as to what it means. In my view, the motion passes.
Yeah.
Motion hits the floor. The motion passes.
Yeah.
Stadium is dead.
It's over.
It's gone.
It's gone.
It's kaput. It has finished. Now,
Yeah.
the reason for that, there's a few scenarios. I'll just sort of talk you through them so everyone's clear on that.
Yep.
I need to find where I wrote those stadiums down, those scenarios down. But either the new Liberal Premier has been forced to dump it in order to secure support on the floor, so it's gone.
Gone.
Either Mr. Winter is in government with the Greens and he's forced to dump it as part of doing a deal with the Greens, because the Greens say we don't want it.
Yep.
So it's gone.
Yep.
Or there's an election during which time both sides will absolutely dump it in a desperate scramble to find votes. So it's gone. It's finished.
Any option
Gone.
you look at, Stadium 1.0, for the sake of the argument, is dead. It's gone.
But Stadium 2.0, perhaps.
Well, I think it could be a very live proposition, particularly from Labor. Yes, in my view.
There is still a glimmer of hope on that.
I think that's answered a lot of questions that we've got. A comment from Will M. Whoever the next Tas Premier is, they're faced with difficult decisions to get the budget under control.
Yes.
Correct.
They are.
I take that as comment.
Take that as a comment. Thank you, Will J. Yes.
A statement of fact, but a comment. But yeah, look, so yeah, I mean, 2.0, I mean, some members of the Labor Party are still espousing it being the better option. I've got to say, it's going to be quite a challenge if they want to go down that path. There's definitely quite a lot of different things to bring together in terms of making sure that it occurs. You've got to put a lot of dirt just to start with into the Derwent, which might trigger various acts. You've got to change road access to ports, which was its original problem, and that is that it's you run into a critical infrastructure issue around the safety of getting vehicles in and out of the port in a quick and efficient way. And then you've simply got all bringing together what is quite a complex proposal in terms of housing, football fields, and just about anything you want, I think you can get in that.
There's a glimmer of life with 2.0. I mean, I think the York Park interim option is obviously the most live option, but that is going to be entirely dependent upon our good friends at the AFL.
At the AFL, that's exactly right. And still have the High Performance Centre down at Kingston.
We could, yeah.
Still base the
2.5 hours drive from Hobart to Launceston.
Yeah, that's
a long way.
Yeah, it's not a long way. And
so all games would then have to be played in Launceston, though?
Well, we still have a thing called Bellerive, but
I know, but it's
anyway.
Well, anybody would think they played football there already. Oh,
Beach.
Anyhow,
I'm sorry.
Let's move on.
We're getting towards the end. I know people have got better things to do on a Wednesday morning.
Yes.
we are at the point of the show where I feel compelled.
Yes, Will, exactly.
Compelled to to do my little "I told you so" segment. I'm sorry. Really,
Could almost make this a regular
really,
segment at this particular point in life.
I wish I'd organised an intro for it.
Thank you. Yes, it's a regular segment, isn't it? Unfortunately. Look, I've said it before. I said it, a few shows ago that the stadium was slowly killing the government. As you mentioned, Becher. I said down the barrel last pod 10 days ago to the Premier that he should dump the stadium for the sake of the government.
Yep.
Obviously, he missed that episode. During the, as I've said before, during the 2024 state election campaign, which I helped to run, we spent most of our time trying to polish that stinking pile of poo down there on Macquarie Point. I'm not talking about the poo plant. I'm talking about the proposed stadium. Yep. And we were just very fortunate that the Labor Party at that point had a confused position on the stadium and were unable to capitalise on its unpopular nature.
Yep.
That was how things played out. But I also recall at that time, some very, very senior people at the Tasmania Football Club who apparently know more about politics than me, telling me and others that the stadium and hence the team was actually an electoral plus for the government.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a good prediction.
And I've noticed this morning, I've noticed over the last couple of weeks, the increasingly frantic nature of public communications from Team Tasmania, Tasmania Football Club, whatever they're called, including a statement this morning suggesting that we might be in a spot of bother here, guys. Again, I just sometimes, particularly in Tasmanian politics, you've got to get outside the bubble. Get outside of the AFL bubble, so the Salamanca bubble. Get outside of the AFL bubble. You've got to get in the real world and hear what people are actually saying. And when people are saying it, and the polling's saying it, and the election results are saying it, you've got a problem. You do something about it.
It's a very Tasmanian thing, though. I mean, like we had the pulp mill a few years ago. Before that, we had the Gordon below Franklin Dam. We've had privatisation of the hydro. We've had all these issues that seem to regularly come up as governments sort of go through what I would term a death roll. And this one, it's been coming like a freight train for a little period of time. I think, both of us sort of felt the stadium was a bit of a turkey from day one, and you were the one saying it'll effectively kill the government, and there it is. So, we'll wait.
Yeah, we will. And just before we conclude, as to the earlier comment from Mr. whoever it was there, Sam, about what it might mean for the team more specifically, I mean, I have the view, I've long held this view, whether the Parliament kills the stadium or a new Premier kills the stadium or whatever, ultimately, in terms of the team, the only people that can kill the team are the AFL.
Yes.
And if the team gets killed, it will be the AFL that kills it. Now, if they want to do that, that's fine.
Messaging. You guys might work in PR.
We might. But, I mean, that's the reality. And as I say, the thing we saw, and I just quickly reflect on this before we conclude, Beach, in the Nelson election, Meg Webb versus Marcus Vermey, the amicable butcher. Marcus campaigned very strongly pro-stadium, pro-team. Meg was very clear, I'm voting this thing down. You vote for me, I'm voting against the stadium, and I'm voting against the team. And at the end of the day, she won in an absolute landslide, which tells me that the no stadium, no team argument has very, very little political salience. When people are given the choice of voting for Meg Webb, warrior for justice and accountability, or an AFL team, they went, tell you what, I'll take Meg Webb. Thank you very much. I love a team, but I'm not going to lose any sleep if we don't.
And at what price, I think, which is the point being made. All right.
Is it too late to move the Spirit Terminal to Mac Point? This is from Ben Armitage again, who's also saying that tickets are on sale for the Bordy Panto called Big Knobs and Broomsticks.
There you go.
Is it too late, Beach?
Yeah, well, it's not too late in the sense that you'll probably have, a fair space of land there. But the trouble is, Mac Point's a little bit landlocked, so
yes,
you
the
have
actual
to go
port's
through.
not part of it.
Yeah, you have to go through Tasports, and that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Anyway, no worries. The ship's not coming for a little while yet. They forgot to test the gas before they sent it and worked out it doesn't work. So.
Yeah, so it's all good. So that'll be fine. All right, that's time. Let's see what today brings. FontCast is brought to you by Enterprise Market and Research Service, Tasmania's leading and trusted research provider, isn't it? Yes. Thank you, Brad.
Great to be on the show. Thank you to all our loyal listeners for the first live podcast on YouTube.
Yes, that's exactly right. And
I kind of like doing it like this.
Yeah, well, I've got to say thank you, Sam, for delivering the goods, as it were.
I had no faith that this was going to work.
There you go.
But
We've been of that view with FontCast since day one that it won't work, but here we still are. Right.
And I would say, Beach, we will probably be back with a more traditional episode at the end of the week. I suspect, with the entrails, or examining the entrails of how things have ended up.
Or if not before. Right. FontCast is produced and directed by Sam Eichen for Eichen Media. And until next time, carry on.